thank you, Essen. And let me say, saya ucapkan selamat berpuasa to all our friends here with us today.
Thank you very much.
And a very good Selamat Hari, as I said. And terima kasih also to the Islamic Renaissance Front and our friends there for calling me in today to be part of your discussion. What I intend to do is to just put some food for thoughts on the table and to see what will be the new normal, how this will look like. When we all begin to recover, you've said it yourself, Essen, we are studying not only in Malaysia, but all over the world, in Europe as well, slowly to deconfine and to try to desescalate and come to a more normal situation. And I just to start answering the first question I had before I started from our friend Andrew Ko, lessons learned. I think we are still everyone is still in the process, so we will have a lot of lessons learned afterwards. But we are still learning from each other, sharing, and that is what's important. I will just put some thoughts of what is happening in Europe. What are we discussing? What is the principal issues that are coming into the thinking of what will be this new normal, to share it with our Malaysian friends and see if this will be useful for them. This crisis, of course, has shaken the foundations of our societies, have exposed a lot of vulnerabilities that we were having, especially in fragile countries. It has deepened existing conflicts and certainly generate more geopolitical tensions. We need a global response. I think this is not a mantra. Everyone realized it. So that is one lesson learned for everyone. We really want truly to recover. We need all to recover, because if there are some who have not recovered, then we will still all be affected. So there is a lot of international and regional solidarity and responsibility and cooperation that is needed at ASEAN level, at European level, but in the regions at global level. Before the crisis, there were already some trends, some dynamics, like, they were changing geopolitics. We were all, as you have mentioned, and we were going into more digital era, more of discussion on environmental degradation, on climate change, and we will see more and more of these trends accelerating. So the new normal is not something completely new. It's not a completely new era, but we will see some of these trends that were already there, accelerating, and we need therefore to perhaps accelerate our responses to them. Let me then speak more about opportunities and challenges for all in everything we are witnessing. As in personal level, we are all at home, confined, more close family relations, but less close ways of expanding, of reaching out to friends, to family, which is far away. And on the professional life, we all have to change our way of working. So we have seen, as you said, a lot of going back to work at home. That was something new in Malaysia. At least for my embassy, it was the first time we tried this teleworking, and it works. But you need to reorganize yourself, everyone in a different way. And the same, we do it regionally, as a nation, as a region, and globally. One of the big opportunities is that we see, or we should see, a renewed enthusiasm for multilateralism. That is something we would like to see, and a restoration of global governance. That is very important. That is a rule-based international order with the United Nations at its core, and there are also the Sustainable Development Goals are all very high in the agenda. We have seen new levels of cooperation around the world. Sometimes at the beginning, countries, because it was a big shock, tend to go inwards. We all tend to protect ourselves. But it's true that it shouldn't be that way. And then afterwards, when thinking, we say, well, we need each other, we need to cooperate more, and we have seen that all throughout in many areas. So it's a new opportunity, hope so, to cooperate across borders, and we all need it because this virus doesn't have borders. So we need to use this to strengthen the global governance. Mainly, as I mentioned, we have the SDGs. We have to uphold our commitments to the Sustainable Development Goals. These are very important because the main goal of them is to make the lives of people better. And now we need to make the lives of people certainly better. In 2015, our leaders committed to end poverty, to protect the planet, to ensure that people could enjoy peace and prosperity. And this is the heart of the goals, and therefore it's much more relevant and pressing today. We still have a long way. The pandemic has made societies more unequal. And has had a very big impact in all of those who are more vulnerable. So we need to use the SDGs to work and our values to work a new path. Let me also mention as a second opportunity health. And this is SDG number 3, good health and well-being for all. The health, we are seeing it more and more, and we have to see it as a global public good. We have seen, one of the biggest challenges we are facing is the vulnerability of our health systems, the inequality of our health systems. There are systems all over the world, and therefore we all need more greater health security and resilient social care to everyone, and this is not easy. We have seen, we are pulling resources, and we have seen that we are trying to get the treatments of vaccines and the treatment of COVID to be accessible to all. This was part of a big initiative the European Union had with WHO, what they called the Accelerator Initiative, to which Malaysia and Prime Minister Muhyiddin participated in the launch. It is through working together, but to make whatever treatment, whatever research on vaccine, and therefore afterwards the manufacture and distribution of this to be accessible to all. There was this pledging conference, perhaps some of you heard about it, on the 4th of May, where at least 7.4 billion euro, which is around 30 billion renminbi, were pledged not only from states, but also from organizations, from philanthropists, from everyone that wanted to contribute. And it hoped that it will contribute essentially to good cooperation on vaccines and diagnosis therapeutics for all. We have seen at ASEAN level a similar effort. I, for the first time, have seen the very close working of ASEAN here, coordinating with the neighbors. They are going to create a COVID response fund. They are going to establish regional reserves of medical supplies. And this is something we are all trying to do. In Europe, of course, we are looking to see how our resilience and our strategic autonomy in the area of medical supplies can be further strengthened, because we felt very vulnerable when this crisis struck. Another element, another opportunity is, as you mentioned, digital and green. How we can make the build better together, a more healthy planet, but for all our societies, what we are trying to do in Europe is to twin transition to a climate change neutral model, and to try to have a more digitalized Europe. So even in our areas, we have seen that there is also still a lot to do. Malaysia can use, of course, this opportunity to bring more of this green dimension, and certainly to extend digitalization to all. This will be part of every economic recovery package. In Europe, the famous European Green Deal will be back into the agenda, into the table. It's never left the table, but it will be more and more prominent. Also, an acceleration of digitalization of work. We have seen e-learning, e-commerce, e-governance, e-working. So there is certainly a lot of ease that we will see very much coming. But there I could make a caution word saying we have to avoid there is a big digital dividend. We have to avoid there are more digital inequalities because this is certainly a risk, and to try to tackle digital literacy, because even for schools we have seen that many children don't have the means to do e-learning, and they could be then left behind. So we have to make governments and at European level and at all levels a lot of efforts to try to reach through digitalization to everyone. A word on opportunities for our new economies. We are certainly going into a big unprecedented economic slowdown and shock. We have seen economies suspended, paralyzed nearly. We have seen supply chains disrupted. We have seen demand collapse. And with all of that, a lot of getting into more protectionism, more closing up policies, short-term policies, and this is not good. I think our economies and societies need to open up. This is fundamental, slowly, cautiously, gradually, but we are all, trying to readapt with new ways of work, going to work now with the CMCO, with a lot of measures for social distancing, doing more teleworking combined with presence, so the way we use our workspaces. So there is a lot of change, and that, of course, people need to adapt. There's cost for companies, business, so there is always a need of everyone, trying to see ways where we can help to adapt to the new scenario. But in every new scenario, open trade will be very important for all our economies. Certainly in Europe, open and rule-based trade, which will provide a stable and predictable framework for business, which is very important. We have a big single market, which at the beginning there was, some of the borders were closed even for people, but also that affected goods, so we had to reopen them for goods. So we need to work, certainly the big advantage we have in Europe of the single market is something we need to cherish, and we need to make all the efforts needed that it works well. And that has given us a lot of thought in Europe. You see many people speaking about the necessity of open strategic autonomy. How can you achieve the right balance between, on the one side, open and rule-based trade business environment, and on the other side, how you protect your people and your business and your societies in areas where they are most vulnerable. And one of the areas that has come out has been the medical supplies, for example. So how you invest in more strategic value chains, in more resilient infrastructure, in more diversify and so our sources, at the same time keeping supply chains open, but in some cases we will see a delocalization of the production of certain key key goods into more neighboring areas of Europe. So we need to invest a lot more on the neighborhood to try to make them, follow a bit what in Europe is trying to achieve, help them on their economic development. So this is something, a change a bit on the whole global supply chains, how they work is something that is going to affect us all. That will affect also Malaysia, who is a key hub in the supply chain of the whole, in many of the medical personal protection equipment that we have all needed so much, and therefore to keep this supply chains open is very, very important. The other thing is, try to use what I said at the beginning, maintain a rule-based international order. Also in the economic side on WTO, a lot of efforts now to try and see how we can modernize WTO so that it works in a more effective way, in a more transparent, accountable way for our societies. We had, many countries had suspended tariffs in a temporary way of the most needed medical equipment. Can we do that perhaps more in a permanent way? So those are issues that are there in the international discussion. But certainly there will be also more trade agreements on our side. We are reviewing our trade policy, but certainly open trade means more, more trade with our partners. This is key. We need to ensure that trade remains at the heart of our economic recovery. There are challenges in this recovery, big ones that we have seen from the pandemic. And let me mention two. One is values, and the other one is disinformation. And on values, I would like to mention, that any normal will need a human right-based approach. That is fundamental. This approach needs to include everyone, everywhere, and respect of all human rights, which is at the heart of any recovery for the pandemic. The pandemic has had consequences and a disproportionate impact in the rights of the most vulnerable, in the rights of women, in the rights of children, in the elderly persons, in those persons like refugees, migrants, eternal displaced persons, and it has deepened, certainly, it has deepened inequalities. So how are we trying to then put this right and help all these vulnerabilities that we have seen? Let me take an example of the woman. If you allow me, as a woman, something very close to my heart. We had a regional project called Safe and Fair, which looks at women migrant workers. And this is a project that we do throughout ASEAN, and we do it through United Nations all over the world. And there we did an assessment on how COVID-19 had impacted migrant women workers in ASEAN. And they found that the female migrant workers have endured increased violence by employees, family members, or while traveling during this pandemic. So therefore, during times of confinement, I think we need to provide increased protection to all forms of sexual and gender-based violence. Because, and this happens in all countries. So we have seen, even in our societies, an increase on forms of violence, gender-based, in very high level terms. And we all know gender equality is one of the big SDG commitments. And we are not living in normal times, that we all know. So we cannot take this as an excuse not to backtrack for everything we had achieved. This is not an excuse. This is not a pretext to limit democratic and civil space, certainly not. And this shouldn't be a step back in our principles of rule of law and international commitments on human rights. So there we need a lot of work to do to avoid this, as I said, to be taken as a pretext, an excuse, or a step back to our commitments. One other example is xenophobia and hate speech, and we have seen that also here in Malaysia or in Europe as well, and around the world. This is not the time to blame anyone. The virus, as I said, doesn't distinguish race or nationality, so it will affect everyone. So we must put, one of the lessons is the people at the center. We need to try to tackle inequalities more than ever and uphold human rights for all. 85 million of world migrants come from Asia, and 11 million from Southeast Asia, and 50% of those 11 migrants are women. So the numbers are there, and we have them all over. We have them with us. So we need to take care of them. Human rights and that's what Europe's, and that is an international commitment from everyone, are universals and might be upheld everywhere and in any case. This also means the same for Syrians, for Yemenis, Rohingyas, Venezuelans, Palestinians. And tomorrow we all celebrate on the 17th of May is the International Day Against Homophobia, Biphobia, and Transphobia, IDAHOT. So let me use this opportunity to pay tribute, to human diversity, to the right of every individual to define and defend their own identity, to be, whoever they want to be, and to love whoever they want to love. And this, I would like to then pay tribute and send my special wishes to the LGBTI community in Malaysia, around the world, to all the friends, and to pay tribute also to the civil society and the people who are working to support them. In these difficult times, I imagine their challenges are even more than for others, in particular to access to health. Let me then mention the last challenge, which will be disinformation. I think we are all in a wave of fake news, which is very, very, in particular also for COVID-19, and this what we call infodemic. It creates an uncertainty, it creates anxiety, and also, it can cost life because of the non-medical advice it creates on how you treat COVID. It has also often targets values and our interest, and it has also, increased tensions internationally. So we have to be cautious about this, and we have to tackle it. That is something we have done at European level. We cannot use this as an excuse to silence opinions and perspectives, so we have to be careful and not to hide our own freedoms. The new normal needs to have freedom of expression, freedom of press, access to information, and therefore not use it. The measures now to defeat the virus should not be used to restrict the work of human rights defenders, of journalists, of civil society organizations, because they are doing an enormous job to help those more vulnerable. I've seen them going to helping those that don't reach, that don't have health, that they don't have food because they don't have any more work. There are so many people outside there that need help, and the work that civil society is doing, turning to them, helping them, is key all over the world. So let me just end with this. We shouldn't fall back into the old habits. We need to rebuild. This is about rebuilding. This is about thinking of our future in better terms. How can we do it better now? Seize this opportunity, guided by our principles, our global commitments, our values. And this is the time to get all of us together. No country, no organization can do it alone, and we all have similar challenges, and we all have vulnerable communities that we need to take care of. So we hope you use this opportunity to do it better. Thank you. Terima kasih.